Welcome to Inside the Skev, and I'm your host, Aaron Masliansky. Today we have David Sutton from Sutton Studios here, and we're going to talk a little bit about what he does as a photographer and a little bit of David's background. He's a local Skevanston business owner, and David, thanks so much for coming on.
You're very welcome. I'm pleased to be here.
It's a pleasure. So, David, you're a photographer, but your business is a little bit more unique than just being a photographer. Like, how are you different than other people?
I think the main difference is that I am very, very specialized. I specialize in a form of portraiture that's kind of outdated and also very specific. It in a broader sense, it's basically I'm doing family portraits, but I have for 25 years put pets very prominently into the family, and when families come to me for portrait sittings with their pets, we always do some part of the session always focuses on the pet or pets, apart from the family as well. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that makes it different is my concept of family and my definition of family is very, very broad and inclusive. And if you are a person living alone and you have a cat or a dog or multiple pets that you live with, that to me is a family, and I'm sure to you it's also a family.
Absolutely.
Excuse me. And if you're a young couple and you have pets, or any couple, actually any age, middle-aged couples, there are people who have never had children. I have clients who are empty nesters, elderly people who are absolutely devoted to their cat or their dog, and without whom they would feel lost. And my portraits, I think, honor those family relationships, and my hope is that what I'm doing with them is turning them into art and artwork for people's homes.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you're capturing those family members at where you could have that forever.
Yeah, that's the idea, and kids change. I mean, young people grow up very quickly, and having been in business for 25 years, I'm seeing the full effect of that, because some of my clients in the past couple of years had initially come with their parents when they were quite small for family portraits with their pet. They grew up now in their 20s or 30s. They have a significant other or a dog or both. And I had this one young lady tell me that she had grown up seeing these portraits on her wall, and when she got a dog, it just seemed like she had to do it. It was just part of the equation of having a pet and having a relationship with them.
Sure. And also, I mean, besides just taking pictures with people's pets, it's black and white.
Yeah, that's another way in which I'm very specialized. I only show black and white portraits, and have been very strict about a square format and black and white for the entire 25 years that I've been doing this portraiture. People occasionally ask, well, can I get some of these in color? And of course, I would be a fool not to capture the original image in color. But my black and white was my first love from the time I was a little kid, and partly I think it was just the simplicity of it, because I was developing my own pictures and printing them, and color was a factor of 10 more complex than black and white. But it's what I grew accustomed to seeing, and I like the way that it reduces things to light and shadow and form. And so when I started thinking in terms of portraiture, I was pretty locked into black and white from the outset. So yeah, occasionally someone has a dog who has a blue eye and a brown eye and a beautiful merle coat, and they'll want one or two prints in color, and of course we'll do that. But sure, for the most part, people are coming to me for one thing, and it's I think it's unusual in my business for photographers, whether they're working business to consumer or even business to business, to be this highly specialized for so long. But I've been pretty stubborn about it.
Well, it works. People know your brand.
Yeah, I think that is one of the primary benefits is that it's distinctive and people know when they're looking at my work. Mm-hmm. But it also simplifies things. If you introduce color into a portrait, you suddenly have to think about what people are wearing in different terms and what color their hair is and what color the backdrop is. And I don't want to be thinking about all those things. It's similar to the technical side where I have my lights pretty much locked down. I move them a little bit this way, a little bit that way. I raise them up, I lower them, but I don't change the style of lighting and I don't mess with backdrops. I want all of my attention to be available for relating to the subjects in front of me, whether they're human or canine or feline, and being able to draw them out, make them comfortable, make them feel relaxed enough that I can get portraits that they recognize as themselves.
Right. I mean, I think that's so important, especially given what you do. How have you learned to be so good with animals?
You know, I just practice, and I've been doing it for 25 years. I have always liked animals, and I'm recalling, just because you asked that, I'm recalling it. Our dog, or my family dog, my older sister got a dog when I was about a year old, so the dog was always there, and he lived to be 17, so my mother had to have him put down when I was already a freshman in college. Mm-hmm. So he was always there. But one of the thing that I just remembered is that he would occasionally escape. He was, he was supposed to be either in the house or on a tether in the backyard, but every once in a while he'd escape. And even when I was very young, I was very, very good at catching him, at being the guy that brought him back home. And that is actually, I've never said this, but it is my earliest recollection of having an idea of how to interact with dogs. What I knew was sooner or later he's going to stop to pee. But the thing I learned very shortly after that is you never, ever catch a runaway animal of any kind by chasing it, because it triggers their flight response.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to be kind of casual about it. You kind of, follow them slowly, but anyway, that's not what we're talking about. But
it's understanding and relating to them. That's the key.
Yeah, I think in much the same. I've noticed over the years, especially in adolescence and young adulthood, that men who grow up in the absence of sisters don't necessarily get that women are people. And I have the great good fortune of having 3 good sisters who made it very clear to me that we're all people and we all relate. And I think that carries over for me to animals. We're mammals. We're very much more mammals than humans like to admit or realize or even so grasp. Yeah. And so much of our behavior is mammalian. And I've, since early on, I just pay attention to them like you would any other person.
Right. That makes sense. We have so many similarities. Yeah. And I find it funny when people say, that we're not animals, we're people, we're something completely different. And yes, we have more complex brains, but we are animals just like everybody
else.
Animals
with another layer of brain on top. What I relate to that, Aaron, is when I'll see these headlines. It's like, amazing, dogs found to have thought processes or vestiges of emotions or things like that. And I'm like,
duh.
Yeah. Yeah. Where have you been? Anyone who spends significant time with animals, horse people, and horses and dogs in particular, even more than cats, have I don't know if evolved is the right word for it, but they've certainly grown accustomed to and are very bonded with and strongly associated with human populations. And anyone who spends time around dogs and horses in particular, and cats, very much so, you just know that they're people. You know that they're individuals. You know that different ones have different characteristics, and different ones are, and the same one is in different moods at different times of the day for different reasons. And if you choose to overlook that or ignore that fact, you can get hurt very, very badly. Or at the very worst, you're not going to have very good relationships with animals.
No, but the characteristics are so similar. I mean, I remember my sister had a dog. Her name was Priscilla, and she absolutely loved me. And she would look. One time I came over to my parents' house, and my sister and Priscilla were there. And Priscilla sees me come in, and she peeks outside to see if my wife was around. And then she wasn't there, so then she came up and like started licking me, and she was so happy. It was so funny. It was so amazing. But we have so many similar characteristics. It's just paying attention.
Yeah, paying attention has been a big theme and a big teacher in my life.
Absolutely. So you're not from Evanston originally, though, right?
No, I'm not. I was born and raised in South Bend, Indiana. And it was kind of 18 years and out. I did some pretty cool stuff there. Left when I was 18 to go to college. I spent about a year and a half at Indiana University, and then my education got a little disjointed after that. I took a semester off, went to Europe. I came back, transferred to the University of Southern California. I was a student there for a year, trying to get into their cinema program based on a couple of years' experience that I had in high school working in television. Couldn't get into the cinema program, so I took a year off. I worked in photo labs, and then I realized that just having a job that just paid the rent was not going to,
not cut it,
add up too much over time. So I went back to school and enrolled at UCLA this time. Spent a year while I was enrolled at UCLA in an education abroad program. I lived in Germany. Was very fluent in German. I came back, changed my major to German because at that point it was the only thing that made sense. I applied to graduate school. I was accepted. They offered me a teaching assistantship. And then I found myself at a crossroads. I said, wait a minute, David. Haven't you always wanted to be a photographer from the time you were about 9? I said, why, yeah, but, if you're a college professor, you can do that in the summers. And there was a part of me that just didn't want to make that compromise.
Yeah.
And so I realized that if I tried to make a living as a photographer and it didn't work out, I could go back to teaching German. And so far, I'm still...
You haven't failed yet.
I've not had to avail myself of my fallback plan.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah. You get to do what you love.
I do. I had a really nice visit with a singer-songwriter, guitar builder named Bruce Roper a couple of weeks ago, and I've been listening to his music in the Sons of the Never Wrong for, probably 25 years. But I finally had a chance to meet and chat with him, and he was talking about his life, and he said, basically, I'm doing what I like to do. And I said, that's essentially my life.
Yeah.
And it does feel, I feel very, very, very fortunate for all the advantages that I was given from birth, from the color of my skin, the country I was born into, that I am in a position to do that because I realize and I appreciate that it's pretty rare.
Yeah, it's a lot of luck.
Well, a lot of luck. Yeah, back to what you were saying, I think very early on about how did you get good at this. I just kept at it, and when I first started trying to be a freelance photographer, I wasn't that good at it. And I'm recalling, I remember when Ira Glass started his program, This American Life, the first few episodes I listened to, I thought, this guy really kind of sucks. But it's a really great show now. And he put an inspirational thing. Actually, it was just him talking on YouTube, and then there was a graphic that went along with it, which was all the words. And it explained this I think, really, really well. He was talking about creative people and the creative process and how hard it is to stick with it. And the reason it's hard for people to stick with it is because if you have an artist's sensibilities, but you haven't put in the time, you can see what you want the finished product to be. And then you attempt to create something and it falls short. And a lot of people give up at that point because, and I certainly did that with music all through my teens and 20s. It's like, well, I got a guitar and I got this book, and I don't sound great. But the only solution is to keep at it, and keep practicing and practicing and practicing. And Ira's show got better, and I believe I continued to improve. One of the things that makes it possible for me to keep doing this and not feel like I need to do something else just for my brain is that I keep seeing pictures that I've never taken before. I keep seeing poses, interactions, different things, just new images. I mean, it's true that every face is different. Even every dog and every cat face is different. So everyone is completely unique. That's one of the things I love about portraiture of humans is every face is its own history, its own genetics, its own biology, its own emotional past. But I continue to be surprised by images that I capture in the same room with the same lights and essentially the same situation, just a couple of people and a dog or a person and a dog. And as long as that keeps happening and as long as my knees hold out, I'm going to keep at it.
Well, it's like evolution, right? Because it's like every time there's a new iteration of the next generation, it could be the same things that are starting it, but then there's random changes throughout.
Right.
Mutations.
Yeah, thousands of forks in the road. It could go this way, could go this way, can go that way, and each of those forks takes you down a different place.
And I mean, you do other things creatively that help you that you enjoy, like music and writing, right?
Yes. Not only do I enjoy them, I have found that they just recently, very, very recently, that they help me in my photography work. And the way I think this just happened. So for a couple of years recently, I was having a hard time getting it up to get excited. Not about the photography, but about the business side of it, because there's creativity that is required there too. How do you keep getting the word out? How do you keep telling people about what you do, and how do you find new ways of saying it, and how do you find new channels for saying it? Mm-hmm. And I kind of about a year or a year and a half ago, I decided that it seems unlikely I'm ever going to be able to retire. So I decided to work retirement more into my day-to-day life and improve the work-life balance. And I said, let's change the numbers on the window. I'm now open 10 to 4 instead of 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna work more on music. I play guitar, not that well. I play a cigar box guitar, which is a special thing that I built myself. I recently, about a year and a half ago, took up trumpet again after about a 50-year hiatus, 47-year hiatus. I quit my freshman year of high school. And so I'm doing those things and also spending more time on writing projects, just writing essays, and writing songs. I started writing songs about a year and a half ago, which I didn't think was something that mere mortals could do, but it turns out it is. And what I have found is that turning my attention away from my core business and focusing on these other things that I love that are creative endeavors kind of reawakened my creative center, I think, and that then has lifted me up in terms of my relationship to my core business. And I'm back to being very excited about things like new products that we're going to be offering that are just coming in the next few months, and new marketing channels. The hardest part, I think, for a lot of people in my position to deal with, unless you have, through some stroke of luck, a partner who is really good at the nuts and bolts and the getting things done part. Creatives aren't always, great at keeping the shop running. I've done pretty well, but I've also had extraordinary help over the years. So
it's like a chef in a restaurant.
Yeah, that's right.
It's hard for the chef to make the business part of it a success.
Yeah, because they're the creative. I read a book a few years ago called Traction, which really helped me out. It helped me in understanding myself, because it was easy to think, boy, I'm just no good at this. I take really nice pictures, but the business part of this, I'm just no good at it. And the book explains, the premise is that there are no successful entrepreneurs. There are only successful entrepreneurial partnerships. And that every partner needs, I can't remember what the author, Gino Wickman, I think is his name. I can't remember what he calls this other person, but it's like an actualizer or something like that. But someone who takes this constant stream of great ideas that are coming from the entrepreneur and vets them and says no to many of them.
Right.
And then picks one and says, yes, this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to help you do it. And then they're also the person that gets things done. They have the capability and the focus to, it's becoming more and more common knowledge that artists, that attention deficit disorder, which is a term I really, really despise, is just a way that certain minds are, and creatives tend to fall into that category, where things catch our attention and we get excited and we move from thing to thing rather quickly. So it's great to have someone that you're associated with who can kind of keep you anchored and just get stuff done and let you continue to play. And I had tried for a number of years to hire a full-time manager to do that, and I had a lot of very good people, and I'm only talking about the time since I read this book, hadn't really found that full-time person. And so I stopped looking, and I stopped needing a full-time manager because I just made things more efficient. I'm doing all the customer service phone calls and client contact myself.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if it was the end of last year or the beginning of this year, I met Jen Martinson, who is she has a business called Backline Business Consulting, or Backline Business something, and that is what she does, and that is what she was advertising. And she is not an employee. She works for me on a consulting basis, and I meet with her every week, and she does those things that the entrepreneurial partnership requires in order for the entrepreneur to be successful. The entrepreneur usually gets the credits. Like there's Steve Jobs, because he's Mr. Personality, and
right.
Then there's Wozniak, who is just doing all the work. And the same was
guy.
Yeah, the same was true with Ray Kroc. A lot of people didn't realize he had a brother who was keeping him tethered and keeping him from floating away, and vetting the ideas and putting things in action. Those are two examples that were mentioned in that book. But so things are very different now. They're very different now. I feel like I've got that entrepreneurial partnership in Jen.
So do you feel less stressed with that?
Yes and no. I feel more confident that things will get done. I feel more stressed because, she actually makes me do things.
Exactly. You have accountability.
It's like, what is this checklist you're handing me? Yeah, no, but it's good. It's really good. I had a day this week when I didn't have any appointment. It's rare to have, you just be looking at my calendar and say, oh, wow, 4 hours. And I texted her. I said, what do I do? Just tell me what's important. Just tell me what to point my attention at right now. And she came through. So,
well, that's really helpful. I mean, I think it's great to be able to bounce ideas off of people and have that filter. I mean, that's really what that person does in many ways, and focus is what you need to do.
Yeah, and they help to differentiate between good ideas and great ideas. And for every great idea, there are 8 or 10 good ideas, and you have to say no to a lot of good ideas in order to have any time at all for the great ones.
That's true, and you could excel at it. One of the great ideas, I'd say, and one of the great things that you do is your philanthropy, and you work with a lot of causes for animal rights and throughout the city. And tell us a little bit about that.
I would, well, let's see. It goes all the way back to when I started specializing in pet-centric family portraiture over 25 years ago, right about the same time that Paws Chicago came into being. And they had a different approach than I had seen before. They weren't simply taking lost dogs and trying to find homes for them. They were systematically looking at why there was a problem with homeless animals in the first place. And instead of opening up a shelter, they identified the reason so many animals were being euthanized is because there was a population problem. And the reason there was a population problem was because a lot of veterinary services weren't available in certain parts of town. There are veterinary deserts just the same as there are medical deserts and food deserts in some of the less affluent parts of Chicago. And those areas tend to have pet population problems. So they opened a clinic, a spay-neuter clinic down in, I think it's in Little Village. And for people who live in the area, I think a lot of the operations that perform are at no cost. They hand out vouchers, and then other people from other parts of town are welcome to come and do the same thing at a reduced rate. And I started working with them. I just made a cash donation at the very beginning, just as a way of saying hello. And then I started looking around for other organizations. We found, I think I said this, I prefer to think of it as animal welfare, not so much animal rights, although they go hand in hand. But we're in no way exclusive. I mean, I guess you could say, if we circle back to our conversation about humans being animals, that yes, because a lot of the donations that we make and the charitable work that we do are for human rights organizations as well, and for the LGBTQ community, for minorities, for schools, anyone that's helping people get a leg up who could really use a hand, we're there to help. And what we do most consistently is donate portrait sitting packages to fundraising events that are having silent auctions, and our package is worth about $700, and they usually do really well for the people at the auction, or for the organizations that are doing the fundraising. So they get to raise money, and we get to meet a lot of really nice people, because the kind of people who are out giving money away to do good are usually the kind of people that we want to meet, and that has worked out very, very well. I also, a number of years ago, I started printing a calendar myself, just a wall calendar, which with a different one of my photographs. I selected the photos and I had it designed. I got design work, and sometimes I got printing donated. Sometimes I just paid for the printing. But we call it the Dog Days calendar, and we'd print 10,000 copies and then give them away to 20 or 30 different animal shelters and welfare agencies throughout the greater metropolitan area. And they, in turn, would sell them for $10 a piece. And those did really well.
That's amazing.
People were sad when we stopped doing them. It was increasingly difficult to figure out how to get the thing paid for. Maybe in a year or two I'll be able to fund it myself again, and we'll bring it back. But in the meantime, Paws has started their own calendar, and it's a desk calendar format, which is very different. And they have a sponsorship model where you can contact Paws and say, yes, I want to sponsor a monthly tab, and you make your donation directly to Paws, and they put you in touch with us. And what I do is I donate a portrait sitting to people who are doing that, and then they get to use pictures from that portrait sitting to adorn their page or their tab in the desktop calendar.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's been going strong for 8 or 10 years. I've had my photo on the cover of their calendar for, I don't want to exaggerate, but it does seem like it's been 8 or 10 years. They have an annual fundraiser called the Fur Ball.
Okay.
At the Drake, and there's a live auction, and one of the most significant items that they auction off at the Fur Ball is the cover, basically the rights to the cover. And so that auction happens, and the person that bids the highest on the cover gets introduced to me, and then we figure out what we're going to do, come up with a concept, and we put together pictures for the cover of the calendar.
That's so fantastic. I mean, you're so ingrained in the community because of this work in many ways.
Yeah, I like to think I am. I meet a lot of people who, it's really gratifying, not just in Evanston and Skokie, but also in Chicago, who seem familiar with my work, or have seen it at a silent auction, or have they seen it in a vet's clinic or something like that. And, it is a pretty wonderful feeling. It's just one of the benefits of staying in the same place for 25 years, doing the same thing for 25 years.
Well, it's like you said before, it's putting the time in, and, it's the practice, the time, and it's one thing honing your craft, and then another part making the great community connections.
Yeah, I feel very strongly, I think we talked about this when we chatted before, that there are people who have been successful in business who think that says a lot about them, mm-hmm. and become selfish and greedy because of it. And I think that I could not be a successful business person without the support of my community. And I feel very strongly about supporting the community that supports me in my business. It's just been a fundamental belief that's worked out pretty well, I think, for me since I started this.
Yeah, I believe that statement as well, for sure.
Well, yeah, in your business, obviously, it's apparent, right?
Exactly.
At every turn.
Yes, it is. It's important. And how did you, by the way, get to Evanston and get to your location in Skevanston, downtown Skevanston?
Well, I didn't mean to stay in Evanston, and I'd never heard of Skevanston. I was living in Bloomington, Indiana. I had moved back to Bloomington and was trying to launch my career as a freelance photographer there. And it went reasonably well, but there just wasn't a lot of work. It's a pretty small town, and the university has a lot of its own photography services. So I was looking around for a bigger market and was thinking about Indianapolis. And a friend who was a conservationist at the Art Museum at Indiana University suggested I go talk to a photographer she knew who used to work at the museum, who was working in Chicago. So I actually came to Chicago to talk to Ken, I can't remember his last name right now, about moving to Indianapolis, and he just said, "What are you thinking?" Move to Chicago. It's many factors larger, and there's much more work. And he kind of explained how you could get a feel for things by being a freelance assistant, which was a job I didn't know existed prior to that. So right around the same time, my younger sister Sherry was graduating from college at DePauw University in southern Indiana, and she had just landed her first job out of college, which was teaching advanced placement physics at New Trier High School, which was a bit of a rough year for her, staying ahead of her students. But we talked, and I said, "Look, I'm thinking about moving to Chicago. Why don't we get a place together until we both get our feet on the ground?" She wanted to live in Evanston because she felt as close as she could afford to live to her school district.
Yeah.
And it was close to Chicago, obviously. So we rented a place together, and my idea was that I would stay in Evanston for a year, and then I'd move to Chicago. And I didn't move to Chicago. I stayed in Evanston. It was similar enough to Bloomington to be very, very comfortable, and I liked the people and I liked the trees. I didn't have any difficulty at all getting into Chicago to trot my portfolio around to design firms and ad agencies, and she and I moved from the place that we shared to another place that was bigger, and I just kept staying. I eventually, she went and got married, kicked me out.
Yeah.
But I moved around a bit, and then I landed in a little tiny store at the corner of Florence and Crane. And the building was owned by Gay Riceborough, who's a local artist. She had a painting studio upstairs. And I rented the space so I could have a place to live. But it had been a corner store, and so it had a nice big open area. And that gave me an opportunity to play around and experiment a little bit with studio portraiture, because up to that time, say I moved here in 1986, and it would probably have been 6 or 7 years after that, in the early 90s. The work that I was doing was all on location, and it was all color pictures of people for magazines and for corporate communications. A lot of pictures of guys wearing neckties for business magazines like PC Week and Business Week and Crane Chicago Business. So I was being a freelance photographer, but I had this. I had a fondness for black and white portraiture forever, and Irving Penn, and long before I ever moved to Chicago, I had become aware of Mark Hauser's work, and I really loved that. In fact, when I moved here, it was the first place I went. Basically, the day after I moved here, I went to his studio to see if I could get work as a freelance assistant. And I didn't. He and I later became friends, but it didn't work.
You rib him about that?
Just a little, yeah. So I landed in this little store, and then I was doing sort of invitational portraiture because I needed subjects. I'd say, hey, would you come up? I'd see an interesting face, or I'd have a friend I wanted to do pictures of. Trying to remember what your original question was, and this is how I got to Evanston and why I stayed in Evanston. Yeah. This little store was just perfect. Got to a point. I got a dog. There's no way to make this short enough, but I'll try. I shot a roll of film of him on a backdrop that I had set up for some other. Actually, it was a magazine job, but the subject said, "Why are you coming all the way out to Schaumburg to set things up? Can I just come to your studio?" And I said, "Sure." So I set up a backdrop, and that was over so fast. I thought, well, I should do something else while the backdrop is up, and I took pictures of my dog. And then started doing that on the side. It's like I'm trying to compress this, but my inclination is to tell everyone everything because right. It seems so fascinating to me anyway. But it took pictures of my dog. I was in puppy class. There was another person in the class who was a painter, and because she had a new dog, she had turned her attention to painting. She asked if I had a picture of my dog Zane so that she could use it as a reference to do a painting. And I brought it to class, and it was a black and white 8x8, a square print. And my Marge Gibbs, who was teaching the puppy training class, she looked at that picture, and she had this really thoughtful look on her face, and she said, "You could make a lot of money doing this." And that really got my attention. So I started trying to promote studio portraiture, doing pictures of people with their pets on the weekends while I was continuing to do magazine work during the week. And eventually the model of having people coming to me instead of going to them, and having people to photograph who really wanted to be photographed rather than the people who were just trying to fit it into their schedule, and also having a business-to-consumer model where people paid me cash at the time of service rather than the business-to-business where I would send off an invoice and then wait 30, 60, 90 days for something that they had needed in 24 hours. It's gotten more and more attractive.
Yeah.
So I continued in that space I think, for about 10 years, and outgrew it. And there was a place that on Church Street in Skevanston, which had been Russ Brown typewriters, and I had actually bought a portable typewriter there back in the 80s, shortly after I moved up here. Russ Brown's widow, Catherine Brown, owned the building, and so I rented actually 2 stores there had combined into one, and had been a photography studio, so it was already built out in a way that was advantageous. So I started there, and after about 8 or 10 years, the store to the east of me went out of business, and I annexed that and cut a doorway and connected the two together. So I have a great lot of space there in a little strip mall. It's in my darker moments, I like to say, yes, I spent most of my adult life in a strip mall in Skokie. But it turns out it's
not so bad.
It's not so bad. It's delightful.
It is.
It's a great,
beautiful space.
It's a good space, and it's big enough that I have a whole section of it that is devoted to my other pursuits. I have a workbench back there where I build little guitars, a little tiny room where I can record audio. My girlfriend, Mary Beth Shea, is a model and does some voiceover work, so she's able to work back there. It's a place where I can practice trumpet and not annoy very many people.
Anybody?
Yeah, well, my next-door neighbor, Anna Knowles, who's an accountant, she has my number. If she happens to be meeting with clients and I practice at an inopportune time, she just sends me a text and everything's fine. She's a great neighbor. But no, it's working out brilliantly, and I expect that it will continue to.
That's fantastic.
The building changed hands just a few years ago. A man by the name of John Perkins bought it and has done a really beautiful job of improving the outside of it and improving it in terms of, as we have had turnover, he's very good at getting really desirable tenants. And so we've got our neighborhood, so to speak, our strip mall neighborhood has changed since John has taken over.
Yeah, it seems to be pretty vibrant.
Yeah, it's nice.
It is. Yeah.
And if I wanted to, I could never leave the strip mall and get my taxes done, get my hair cut if I didn't shave my head. I visit the yoga classes and have Pilates all in the same day without ever leaving our parking lot.
It's pretty nice. Yeah, and you can get a drink across the street.
Oh, wait a minute.
7-Eleven.
Trumpet lessons as well.
That's true. That's where you should be playing.
Well, I have had a few lessons there, and they went really, really well. It's very nice. It's just all a matter of time.
Of course, and trying to fit everything in.
Yeah.
So what is the address of your location, and how can people find you online and whatnot?
We're at 3417 Church Street, which is the southeast corner of Church and East Prairie. And if you get to that intersection and you can't find us, then there is something wrong because of a gigantic sign and big 48 by 48 black and white portraits in the window. But most people find us online at Sutton-Studios.com. We have an Instagram feed that I'm very proud of, which is David Sutton Studios, with no punctuation, no underscores or any of those things. I curate the Instagram feed myself, so they're handpicked. And just last month, we hit 10,000 followers.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm also really proud of. We did that without any, bots or...
it's real.
Yeah, it's real. I've been thinking about, but haven't gotten around to yet, looking up ways to increase your followers and all those magical things that they advertise. We haven't done any of that. We use hashtags and great photography, and we've hit 10,000 followers, which is really fun. So David Sutton, David Sutton Studios on Instagram, Sutton-Studios.com on the interwebs, and 3417 Church Street. We don't get a lot of drop-ins. We like to... most of the people that contact us start with the phone, so they get a feel for what we're up to and whether they want to make the trip. I don't generally, as a practice, meet with people before their portrait sitting. Mm-hmm. People come to me, we meet for the first time, we go back into the camera room, and it's just a it's a form of improv. I don't really have a shot plan. I have some touchstones, things I come back to. I usually start with a more traditional pose just to get us going, but then I like to kind of watch the way that people interact and pull my ideas from that. Like I said, it's
more creative.
It's improvisational, yeah. Well, and I get things I wouldn't get otherwise. Part of what I like is when things fall apart and just shooting as that happens. And some of my favorite shots come out of that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's very real. And I think something that's cool just within my line of work is that, if you're moving into a new house and you've got empty walls, it'd be great to set up a studio session with you and get some photos to put up right away.
Yeah, they're my favorite clients. And this is honestly, I have people from as far away as Lincolnshire who they come in for a portrait sitting, and they've just built a house out there or something. They have gigantic walls, and they want to fill them with really large pictures. I really enjoy that process, and I love when they send me pictures of what they've done afterward. You don't necessarily have to have gigantic walls, but I do like I like the idea of people thinking of what I do as wall art, as interior decor, as artwork for their homes, as well as really important historical document, emotional expression of relationships that are so very, very important in people's lives.
Absolutely. Well, you're doing a great service.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. And, I appreciate you coming on to the show. And I think everybody should check out your Instagram feed and contact you for a photo session. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Aaron.
It's a pleasure. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to this latest episode of Inside the Skev. I hope you enjoyed it. Just remember to subscribe. And if you need any assistance for your real estate needs in the Chicagoland area, or specifically Skokie, Evanston, or Skevanston, feel free to reach out to me. I am a realtor at Dreamtown Realty in Evanston. You can email me at aaron@skevanston.com or go to my website, aaronmasliansky.com. Thanks so much for listening.